Silence is safer. Speaking up comes at a cost. This is the Audacity tapes, where women have chosen courage across cultures, continents, and systems of power. I'm Robbin Jorgensen. Welcome to the conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Audacity tapes. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the nature of this conversation. Today's episode touches on loss, mental health, and suicide. If this is a topic that feels heavy or close for you right now, please listen in a way that feels right for you. My guest today is Kristen Christy. She is a national leader in suicide prevention, a military spouse, and the person who conceived and fought for what became the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, a system that now serves millions of people in moments of crisis. Kristen's work has shaped how this country responds to people in crisis. And today, we're going to dive into the story of how she came to this work, what it's required of her over time, and what it takes to imagine and build a system where none existed. Kristen, welcome to the Audacity tapes.
Thank you, Robbin. I love being here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to dive into this conversation, and it's so required, right?
Yes.
It's such an important topic.
Yeah, thanks for taking the opportunity or giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, of course. So before we dive into systems, policy, or impact, I want to start where this story truly began. So take us back to the beginning and tell us in your own words, what happened that led you to this work?
Yeah, I love the saying by the athlete Vernon Law, life is a tough teacher. We get the test first and then we learn the lesson.
Oof, that's
right?
powerful.
So powerful. And it was an aha moment for me as I reflected back on my life and where I am because of and in spite of the tests in life. I grew up in the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force for 32 years. We traveled all over the world, lived all over the world. And my parents were really great with the mantra, we got embedded in our community, whether it was Omaha, Nebraska, or Okinawa, Japan. And it was my younger brother and I thought that it was just, to give us this great cultural understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But we found that it was really important to get embedded in our communities because our communities needed us at certain times when those tests hit.
Sure.
And then we needed our community as well. So in high school, when I was 15 years old, it was 1983. So people don't have to do public math. I'm 39 plus shipping and handling.
I love that.
That's
I am so stealing that. I love that.
Please do. But at 15 years old, I was a world-class athlete. I played someone in tennis who eventually went on to be the number one women's tennis player on the professional circuit and really changed the face of women's tennis. At the age of 15, I also won the golf championship for all the American high schools in Germany because we were in Germany at the time. And in October of 1983, I had a massive stroke.
Oh, wow.
I was completely paralyzed on my right side. It was just before my 16th birthday. My life changed so drastically. The prognosis was if I lived, I would never walk again. Long story short, I'm walking, but it took a year and a half and it took our community because we were embedded in that community.
Yeah.
We had only lived there for 2 months. We were embedded in that community. The community rallied around us. It was absolutely amazing. I write with my left hand now. My right hand still does not work 40 some odd years later. I'm not very graceful when it comes to walking, but the lessons I learned during that time, one, the superpower of community. Two, my identity is not placed on what I do, but who I am as a person, what's in my heart. And my faith played a huge part in my recovery. So all of my scholarships for sports were taken away, from college because I couldn't play. I received a full scholarship to the University of Texas in Austin, hook 'em horns, because my dad was a Texas resident. And I needed to find my community, even though I'm an uber extrovert. I love people.
Same.
I know that I can walk in the room and suck the air right out of an
Yep.
introvert's lungs if I'm not careful. But I still needed to find my community on this huge campus. So I hung out at the ROTC building because I grew up in the Air Force. I grew up living on military bases all over the world. That was my community. And I met Don Christy at an event. He had just joined ROTC. And I remember the first time we met, I walked over to him, put my hand out to shake his hand. And I said, "Hi, I'm Kristen Anderson." He said, "Hi, I'm Don Christy. We can never get married." And I looked at him going,
That was his opening line.
"Oh, what kind of pickup line is that?" He said, "You would be Kristen Christy." Well, 5 months later, don't take no for an answer. We got married right after he graduated and was commissioned in the Air Force, and up to Grand Forks, North Dakota we went. And we were planning on the Air Force being a career. We started our family. Our oldest son, Ryan, was born in North Dakota. And then we moved to Colorado Springs, where I'm still living. And our youngest son was born a month after we got here. And talk about getting embedded in your community. We got embedded in the community because we needed someone to watch Ryan when a month later, right, when I went to the hospital to give birth to Ben.
Right.
And the community had changed. It was the first time we had lived off base. It was just, it was fabulous. And then in 2003, Don came home and said he was asked to get volunteers for a deployment to Baghdad. And he did not feel right asking his squadron, he was a squadron commander at the time, asking his squadron for volunteers unless his name was at the top of the list. And that's when I knew he was a real leader. Everyone loved working with him, but I saw it right then and there because a manager says go, a leader says let's go. And he said let's go. He was the only one chosen. He went to Baghdad for 4.5 months in 2004. And he came back different. We hear about it a lot. I mean, it's been decades since he went, but even back then we had briefings before he left. We had briefings as a family while he was gone. But he was different and trying to reacclimate with the family and the boys. And unfortunately in 2008, I received that doorbell ring, and we were notified that Don had taken his life 3 days before he pinned on Colonel in the Air Force.
I'm so sorry.
And the first thing that went through my mind was our poor boys. They were 12 and 14 at the time. I lived with a lot of shame and guilt.
Tell me more about that. How so?
I knew things were wrong. At that time, and even now, the stigma, especially in the military, but in so many different industries, the stigma of suicide or mental health or seeking therapy or anything like that is better than it was. It'll be 18 years this April.
Yeah.
It's better, but we still got a long way to go.
Right.
And our relationship was broken. He was reestablishing a relationship with the boys. We didn't know exactly what went on over there.
Sure.
We found out later that he, as second in command of the Baghdad airport, he was in charge of making sure the human remains, the flag-draped coffins, got a dignified and respectful transport home. We as a public don't understand everything that goes into that transport.
Yeah.
And we think that that's what really played a big part into him coming home differently. Or
for sure.
I would say not coming home completely. I was in counseling. I tried to find counseling for him that was kind of under the table, that no one would
Right.
know. He was so afraid of getting his clearance taken away. And I did. I lived with the shame and the guilt for almost 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Counseling during the whole time. The boys were in counseling. And I realized, with the help of my community that I was embedded in, that there's no place for shame and guilt between the ears. Right? It's shame off you. And the guilt that I was feeling, I was mislabeling it. It was regret.
How so?
It was regret.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about feeling guilty is when you do something wrong and you know that it's wrong.
Right.
And you have to deal with the consequences. But regret is when you do what you know at the time is best.
Yep.
And you have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
I wish, woulda, shoulda, coulda. We do that all the time in so many different tests. And Robbin, this is not about people and your listeners comparing their adversity to my adversity, right? I've experienced a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale. You've experienced a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale. I guarantee you that every single listener has experienced a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale, whether it's lasted a long time or a nanosecond. But we have some empathy there.
Yeah.
In that regard.
What surprised you most about how grief changes or doesn't over time?
It ebbs and flows.
Because nearly 18 years later, I can still hear it in your voice.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. Absolutely. Our wedding song comes on and I'm just a blubbering idiot.
Yeah.
But there may be something that triggers the sadness, and I don't apologize for my emotions anymore.
Yeah.
Right? As a human race, I think we start crying and we apologize. Well, guess what? I'm a human being.
Yep.
And I cry when something affects me. And I can't remember, I think it was Queen Elizabeth that said, grief is the price we pay for love. Oof. Now, our relationship was a mess, but I love that man.
Sure.
I do have regret, but through therapy and through my community who didn't necessarily know what to do, how to help.
Yeah, and especially, almost 18 years ago, with the stigma that's still attached to all of this today in 2026, back then, people absolutely had no idea how to support people that were going through that type of experience.
Yep. And it's almost like people, I think, are afraid it's contagious. I lost friendships, close friendships. Understandably, I have no hard feelings. They just didn't know how, and I didn't know how to express how I needed the help.
Sure.
And I think your listeners will understand, some of who have gone through a loss, like maybe a death or something like that, that it makes people feel uncomfortable. And if their friendship was just for a season, then it was for a season.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for that season. But I have friends that have stayed friends throughout the 18 years that have just been absolutely amazing. And they've learned lessons, but they've helped me understand. I love this saying, be gentle with yourself because you do the best that you can with the tools that you have.
Right. Right. And I think that it's such a beautiful reminder because we don't pull that reminder in when we're in it and we beat ourselves up all the time.
Yeah.
And we're doing the best we can with the tools we have at the time we're going through whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful reminder.
And so my pain has turned into a purpose that I want to get as many tools as possible in the resilience realm. Suicide is under this resilience umbrella.
Yep.
Right? There's so much under resilience. Resilience, it's skills that we learn. It's just like a foreign language or cooking or, and the more we can use those tools that we learn, whether it's going through the lessons in the test
Mm-hmm.
or we are intentional on, hey, I'm going to take this class on grief.
Right.
I'm going to get therapy for myself. I'm going to work on myself before I can help other people. But my feeling is I went through these tests and these lessons, and I learned some really hard lessons so I can help tutor other people
Right.
through their lessons. I'm not necessarily with them when they go through a test. My college roommate, I just found out this morning that her 19-year-old son passed away on New Year's Eve.
Oof.
And I contacted her and said, I have no words for you. That's okay not to have the word.
Right.
I said I would love to come to the funeral just to sit with her and be with her. And she said, you know what, Kristen, I'm going to have a lot of people at the funeral. I need you here with me now.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm leaving to go to Miami to sit with her because I have lessons.
right. And just that the being with someone and not doing something, because we are human beings, we are not human doings. And we forget that a lot. So just the act of being there, no words, just being with someone and sitting with them in the midst of that is so incredibly powerful. And I think, one, we forget that. And two, that takes practice of how to do it. It's this weird dichotomy of even just being, we don't know how to do that, you know?
When I present and I travel the world presenting on suicide prevention and resilience, I talk about doing something, not saying something.
Mm. Oof.
We don't like the pregnant pause.
Right.
We want to fill that silence.
Yep.
And I say, do something. I remember 2 conversations the night we were notified, and I made one phone call to a friend from church, and our house filled up with people who showed up. They were doing something.
Yeah.
I had a lot of conversations that night, but I don't remember any. I do remember every single person who was in my house that night, 18 years later. It's ingrained. But I remember 2 conversations. One, a friend from church came over and said, Kristen, he's in a better place. And in the rawness of that moment, I said, why isn't the better place at the dining room table with his family?
Right.
We know what she meant, right? We knew what she meant. And then about 20 minutes later, another friend came and gave me a hug, and she said, I have no words for you, but I'm here.
Mm.
Which would you rather hear, Robbin, when you're going through a 10 out of 10 or a crisis, right?
Yeah.
And they just showed up. You don't have to do whatever you feel comfortable. If it's making a casserole, make a casserole.
Yeah.
And take it. Don't stop contacting them because you don't know what to say. It's okay to say, I don't have the words for you.
Right.
But I'm going to sit here in the darkness so you aren't alone.
As you were going through this back in 2008 and raising Ryan and Ben in the midst of this while carrying your own grief, how did that shape the kind of mother that you had to become for them?
Again, regrets.
Mm.
Rear their ugly head. That's for sure. Ben was 12 and Ryan was 14, almost 15 years old. And I remember I made that phone call to have my Bible study leader come over to the house so I wouldn't be alone when I told the boys.
Mm.
And I remember after I told them, and after the shock, it was about 30 minutes, they were almost catatonic in shock.
Sure.
But Ryan, our oldest, asked me, why didn't he love us enough, Mom?
Oh.
And it was difficult. I was grieving. I was trying to do the best that I could. There were times where the boys didn't go to school because I couldn't get out of bed, or I could get out of bed. Let's reframe that. Right? I didn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And my friends would come over and they wouldn't take the boys to school. They made me get out of bed to take my boys to school.
Oh, wow.
It helped so much that they held me accountable. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. I was, we were on food stamps after Don died. Do I get a full-time job? I have the Swiss cheese of a resume.
Right.
Yes, I'm a project manager because being a mom is a project manager, being room mom, team, trying to
All the
navigate,
things.
translate everything that I was doing as a stay-at-home mom
Mm-hmm.
into a resume. And I said, I'm going to wait 2 years. I'm trying to get the boys settled and we had to move. I said, I'm going to wait 2 years. And in those 2 years, I did my best to be there for them. But I will tell you, I was not a helicopter mom. I was a Black Hawk helicopter mom because those boys went through so much. I tried to protect them.
Yeah.
Ryan would call me and say, Mom, I left my homework at home. He was a junior in high school. Mom, I left my homework at home. Will you bring it to school? And I remember driving to school to take his homework, and I turned around and I said, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I am not holding them accountable. Yes, they went through something awful. And at that time, Ryan was diagnosed as bipolar. He was going through a really difficult time. He ended up running away. And Ryan, it's been over 10 years since Ryan disappeared. September 20th of 2015 is the last time I saw Ryan. I have hope that he's out there. Maybe he's listening to this podcast. So thank you, Robbin. Any chance I get to talk about Ryan and let him know how much he's loved.
Of course.
Both the boys had attempted during those years. Even when I got a job as a receptionist, making $12 an hour.
Yeah.
I wish I had gotten a job sooner, that routine and all of that. But yeah, both the boys had attempted. We were dealing with Ryan's bipolar and his drug use. He was self-medicating.
What is it like to live with that kind of uncertainty, the not knowing and carrying those unanswered questions, not having seen your son for over a decade?
Yeah. Again, that's another pain that ebbs and flows.
Sure.
I always have hope. I know. So as a military spouse, so I will tell your audience, I am remarried. I married someone who was in the Navy Reserve when we met. I convinced him to cross over to the Air Force because that's the thing I know and the acronyms I know. I'm a recruiter too. But as I've been a military family member my entire life. That 39 plus shipping and handling years. We talk in acronyms.
Yeah.
Right? HOPE is an acronym for Hold On Pain Eases. That E does not stand for end. But it eases, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And it also stands for Help One Person Every Day.
Oh, I love that.
When you need to get outside of your own circumstances, your own pain, to help someone else, not knowing what their pain is necessarily, right?
Yeah.
We're really good at wearing masks. And, you look at social media, most people just put their good stuff on social media. But they're going through stuff, right? We're all going through stuff. And so I think, with my roommate from college, it helps me when I can help her.
Yeah, of course.
And do that. So as I travel around and as our story gets out there, I have hope that Ryan sees something or
something you put out there.
Yeah. And he'll call. I haven't changed my cell phone number. I leave it on 24/7.
Yeah.
Just in case. Just in case. And I am so excited when I hear stories from people who connect with me who have had a family member missing and they contact me. They're afraid to contact me to let me know this, but they found their family member contacted them or something. And it gives me hope. I've got goosebumps right now just thinking.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that their family member has come back
Yeah.
in the fold. And that brings me hope that one day Ryan will call. I'll get that phone call.
Yeah. Well, we're going to hold that hope for you as well.
Thank you.
So you've also spoken about a heartbreaking voicemail that Ben left you on his 20th birthday. If I'm not mistaken in the timing, it was around the time that Ryan also went missing and left. And this is a moment that just captures how deep the impact of this loss ran for your family. And I would love to play a brief clip of that for our listeners, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
I miss Dad. I miss Dad so much. I can't live without him. I can't. I need him right now. I need him so much. I just need someone right now, Mom. Mommy. I need Dad right now. I can't live without him. It's the worst years of my life. Mommy, I'm not okay. I'm not okay right now, Mom. I really need help. I really need help. I really need answers.
Whew. That is a unbelievably powerful and heartbreaking clip. When you think about that moment now, what does that represent to you about the aftermath of suicide, especially for children?
Trying to compose myself. So I do talk about the aftermath because we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
And before suicide affected our family, I thought it was a very selfish act. We hear a lot of that in society, that people think it's a selfish act. It hit our family, and I read the multiple suicide notes from Dawn. And I came to realize that a lot of times they feel like they're a burden to their family, their community, their coworkers. And it's not that they want to die, it's that they want to live.
Mm.
And research indicates that family members who have a loved one die by suicide, and that's verbiage that we're using now in society, is die by suicide instead of commit suicide.
Okay.
Die by suicide are 25 times more, or 25% more likely to attempt suicide. Now, in our case, this was 8 years after his dad's suicide. It's a lifetime that they have to live with this.
Yeah.
That families have to live with this. And I do play that voicemail when I present, if I get permission from the organization, because I think it gets back to the burden left behind.
Right.
And it's a lifetime of burden. Now, Ben, he grew up with a mama who told him to get embedded in his community, and he did that. He was at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and it was his 18th birthday, and because he was embedded, his fraternity brothers and his roommates got him the help that he needed. with that. And I am so very, very grateful that he allows me to play that.
Yeah.
He was embarrassed at first, but now he understands the significance of that, because that voicemail is the linchpin that has saved so many lives. It gives people a reframe. I'm all about reframing, whether it's the acronyms or the voicemail.
Yeah.
Reframing. And it's finding that hope. Hold on, pain eases. Hold on to resources. Hold on to your community. Hold on to your faith. Hold on to something. Because it does ease, but it takes time.
Yeah. So at some point, something shifted in you from your private grief to public action, right? What were you no longer willing to accept about silence, stigma, or the way this country responds to people in crisis? Like, what led you to even come up with the idea and the concept for 988?
So a friend of mine calls it a gotcha moment, Godcha.
Yep. A God wink of some kind. Yep.
Yeah, God wink, no coincidences. And I bet your listeners, and Robbin, you've done this too. You wake up between 3 and 5 in the morning with these grand ideas.
Yep.
And then 5 minutes later, it's fleeting because you're like, that is too big. How am I going to do this? In 2010, it was 2 years after Dawn's suicide. It was 2 days after I called 911 for Ryan's second attempt. And we did not have a very good, a very good experience with the first responders. Nothing against them. They didn't know, first responders are mainly there for a medical emergency.
Right.
They didn't know how to work with, and I told him he was bipolar. He was just diagnosed bipolar. But they didn't know how to deal with that.
Right.
And so I woke up, it was 3:00 in the morning, one morning, and I said, we have a 3-digit number for a medical emergency. Why don't we have a 3-digit number for a mental health emergency? And typically that would be fleeting. Oh, that's too hard. How do you do that? But then I thought, I was so committed to finding a way to help people and help families so they didn't have to go through what we went through.
Yeah.
Now, each situation is different, but the same grief and loss and feeling of shame. And that's when I had started my new job as a receptionist, working for a defense contractor. I'm not afraid to say hello to people. I'm not afraid to talk. I was afraid to talk about my story because I was worried that if I splayed open my heart, someone would throw salt into the wounds. And I only had one person do that, and that person's no longer a part of my life.
Right.
But as I was socializing to people in my office who didn't have an inkling about suicide, they didn't necessarily have the connections I needed to get to the White House to make it happen. I didn't know how to make it happen.
Right.
But I kept socializing it. And I started joining organizations in Colorado Springs and talking with people. And then I found myself sitting at a table with city council members and county commissioners who knew the governor and the state senators. And again, gotcha moments that God really put people in my sphere to start socializing this. I didn't know what number, it was just, why can't we have it for 911. 911 was established in 1968. We had the 1-800 number. We still have the 1-800 number. It's 1-800-273-TALK, TALK.
Yeah.
It's still active. That was established in 2005 as the suicide hotline. But to find an easier way,
right,
to get to it like 911. We hear about 3, 4, 5-year-olds calling 911 because mommy won't wake up from a nap on the couch. Yep. She's in a diabetic coma. We hear about it because they taught it in school.
Right.
They taught it in elementary school. They taught it, throughout 911 in case of emergency. So as I socialized, I ended up working with the Obama administration and the Trump administration. There were other people in other organizations that were coming on board that had thought about kind of the same thing. A lot of times we'll see something on TV and go, "Oh, I was going to invent that." Right. So it was this culmination of these groups that knew how to make it happen. And finally, 10 years later in 2020, it was signed as an executive order by President Trump. And it was July 16th of 2022 that 988 went online for the first time. So if you think of 988 and the 800 number as like two different website addresses that point to the same website, that's what these phone numbers do. They point to the crisis centers in every state. And it has evolved since then. So when you dial, or you can text to 988, texting went up 1,000%.
Wow.
In the first year. Calls went up 35% in the first year of 988. And I encourage your listeners that 988 is not just for them when they are in crisis. That's kind of the least likely time we're going to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
When we've got this shroud of darkness and depression and anxiety and this crisis looming over us. But it's for us when we have someone we care about who's in crisis. And we can call, we can text and say, truly, I'm calling for a friend. How do I help my friend?
Yeah.
Because they are trained professionals on the other end of that line.
That's beautiful. And that's the piece when you were talking about when you were going through this back in 2008. People don't know how to respond to you. They don't know how to act. And when you've got someone who's a trained professional, 911, they're medically trained, right? 988, they're mentally trained professionals that are able to help you. That's incredible. What were some of the hardest moments in not only getting this to the finish line, because you have this beautiful idea, but to make this national, you've got to deal with all of these legislative bodies and all of these departments and bureaucracy. And what had you stay the course for over a decade to make this real? And share with our listeners, what were some of the hardest moments that you weren't going to give up on this?
I think one of the hardest moments for my ego, and ego is an acronym for edging God out, was that I kind of had to give it up to those who knew how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I was in the background or not involved, or, it was like,
you're handing over your baby.
It was a little bit of a hit to my ego. And then my supportive husband was like, Kristen, is this for you? Or is this for the human beings in the United States who are going through crisis?
Yeah. Ouch.
Wise man. Yep. It was like, oh man. And dealing with the no's. There were a number of people who said, no, it can't be done.
So how do you push through that? How do you not internalize that and say, you know what, you're probably right. This is way too heavy of a lift. How did you ignore that and keep going?
My mom passed away in 2016. So she was my support before she passed away. Fabulous woman, so knowledgeable. And growing up, it was get embedded in the community.
Mm-hmm.
The other mantra was, if you don't ask, the answer's no. If you ask, you have a chance. If you have a chance, take it. And if it changes someone's life, let it.
That's beautiful.
It was too big to put on her tombstone, but I mean, just beautiful, beautiful. And then working with acronyms again, I know that NO stands for next opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a book on acronyms, and that is the acronym that I'm known for the most is NO is next opportunity. So every no I got, it was like, okay, they don't believe in it. I'm going to find someone who believes in it because I believe in it.
Right.
I don't want any other life lost, if possible. We'd love to get to 0 suicides.
Sure.
Right? That we have to have a goal. And there were some days that I'm like, I want to tap out. And then people would come into my sphere again that would take the heavy lift. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't happened, that I would still be working on it.
Right.
I would still be working on it. It means so much to me. Last I heard, only about 27%, it's probably up in the 30s now, but 27% of adults know about 988.
That's amazing.
We want to get that to 100. We want to get that to 100. That's low for me.
Right.
We have swag. I travel all over talking about 988.
Yeah.
You can call it, you can text it, there's a chat line, whatever you feel comfortable with. My son, Ben, that voicemail, he's now 30. He's married. He has a 9-month-old son. He's living his best life. He got paid his full salary to get his master's degree in aerospace and aeronautical engineering. I mean,
that's amazing. So he's doing great.
He's doing fabulous. And it takes time.
Yeah.
Right, to get through that. But he would much rather text than call. He's that 30-year-old,
right,
who would much rather. So to have a texting option. So for your listeners, if you call 988, you will receive some prompts. Dial 1 if you're a veteran or military or family member. And that goes to the the Veteran Administration's run Veteran Crisis Line.
Okay.
Where you have a trained professional who has the cultural understanding
of what it takes to be in the military.
Of being in the military.
Right.
Dial 2 for Spanish speakers. 4 in Washington State only right now for the Indigenous community.
Beautiful.
Our Indigenous community has a pretty high rate of suicide. Trying to get that into other states as well. I will say we used to have Dial 3. They ran out of funding for the LGBTQ plus community, but the Trevor Project comes along and they've got a lifeline. I'm sorry, I don't have the number, but if you can put that in the chat.
We absolutely will put it in the show notes for sure. But anyone from that community can still call the main line, correct?
Absolutely. Anyone can call the main line, 988.
Yep.
And the beauty of it, we've seen it grow. So it's available in the 4 U.S. territories like Guam and Puerto Rico. Canada has adopted it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And it's available from government landlines from overseas military bases worldwide.
Oh, wow. That's huge. Wow.
So there is help out there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
There is help. There is help available, and I appreciate you letting me talk about it. And really, it's raising awareness about 988.
Yeah, for sure. So in addition to all of your policy work, you have also spent years focused on resiliency, and not as a buzzword, but more as a lived practice. After everything that you've carried, the loss, the uncertainty, that long-term advocacy that you embody, how do you define resiliency right now today?
So a lot of people will say resiliency is about bouncing back.
Okay. You have a different one, I can tell.
I think bouncing back, it's a step. It's like a 3-step process for resiliency, especially in crisis.
Okay.
Right? We're talking 10 out of 10 on the pain scale, but you can use it for other event, I got a flat tire the other day. Very inconvenient, It wasn't a crisis. I was able to get off the road carefully. But One, it's feel the feelings. It's okay to feel the feelings.
Yeah.
And find a safe community where you can feel the feelings unapologetically. My son Ben did not feel the feelings for 8 years. And then you heard the Mount Vesuvius that happened.
Right. As a result.
And it exploded.
Yeah.
Two, yes, I think there's an element of bouncing back. But I'm old enough to remember Bozo the clown that you blew up. He had sand in the bottom, right? You punched him so Bozo would bounce back up. He bounced, but he was in the same spot.
Right.
I don't want to be in the same spot.
Okay.
Right? I want to bounce back and then move forward.
All right.
March 4th. So I created National Resilience Day on March 4th because we march forth and conquer our insecurities and our disappointments and our self-limiting beliefs.
I love that.
I call it the stinking thinking from the itty bitty shitty committee between our ears.
Yep.
Right? If we can control our thought process, why don't we think positive things and big goals and try and go for those goals? You know, there's a saying, I don't know who said it to attribute it to, but if you had a friend who talked to you the way you talk to yourself, how long would that person stay your friend?
Right.
Not very long, right? Not very long. So I think it's that 3-step process. Resilience is about withstanding and, adjusting to whatever circumstance comes along. And I think the most important part is not to do it alone.
When you think about
safe person, safe people.
Child. When you think about Don now, how do you want his life to be remembered separate from the way that it ended?
And I am so glad you asked that, because that is exactly what Ryan said. Ryan gave his eulogy, and he said, please remember my dad for his leadership instead of the manner in which he died.
Yeah.
There's another acronym, Robbin. I'm full of them.
I love them. Bring it. What do we got?
It's END. END. Effort never dies.
Ooh.
The effort you put into the hope that you give other people, helping one person every day, you may not know the outcome. I hope that person or people would let you know eventually. I get text messages 5 years after people heard me speak. And it comes at the exact moment when I am like, okay, nothing, the needle's not moving. I need to get a W-2 job or, but our effort never dies. When we put positive energy out there and do positive things for other people, not to keep score, just to be generous, it doesn't die. People are going to remember that. And so the effort that Don put into his Air Force career, a lot of the programs he started or helped start are still ongoing.
Yeah.
And he's got that legacy, but that, I think back, we're trying to make good of an awful situation. And it doesn't have to be on a national level or global level. It could be a level within the walls of your home.
Mm.
It can be in the level of the walls of your community, of your, whatever, your pickleball group. I mean, come on. It's whatever our community looks like, because community looks like so many different things to different people.
Yeah. What do you hope stays with our listeners about this conversation?
Oh, 988. Please put it in your phone. We tried to come up with a number. I really wanted a number that started with 9.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, they had thought about that too. We wanted a number away from 1, so it wasn't fat fingering. Dial 988. I just did an interview for my alma mater, University of Texas at Austin's newspaper, student newspaper. And I encourage the journalists to call 988 or text 988 to see the process of how that happens. I'll also, Robbin, if I may, send you a link so your listeners can order free 988
Absolutely.
stickers,
we'll put it in the show notes.
and
Definitely.
Awareness pamphlets and magnets, and it's getting the word out there. And now I guarantee some of your listeners are going to see billboards with 988 or buses with 988. You're going to see it everywhere, and it's just bringing awareness to 988 and be a hope dealer.
Oh, I love that term.
Be a hope dealer.
Yeah.
It takes nothing to be kind, right?
Yeah.
It takes nothing to be kind.
That's a beautiful place to end. Kristen, thank you so much for your vulnerability and your heart. I know it's not easy replaying that conversation over and over the number of times that you do. So thank you for sharing that with our listeners. For our listeners, we will have all of the links that Kristen mentioned in the show notes, and we will see you back here next week. Take care.
Hope is not canceled.
Love it. If this conversation awakened something in you, pay attention to that. Audacity isn't reserved for a select few. It's a decision made in moments when conviction demands action. If this episode moved you, I invite you to follow the show and be part of amplifying women who are changing the world across cultures, continents, and systems of power. This is the Audacity Tapes. Until next time, choose courage.